Good day all. Welcome to the next video in which we're going to have a look at working with cells, columns and rows, and therefore also sheets. The main thing I would like to show is that it is quicker, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, it is quicker to work with the keyboard than with the mouse. Very often the mouse disappears and you have to find the mouse first before you can point to a place where you want to be, and in fact operations with the mouse are generally slower than with the keyboard. So I'm going to be using the mouse to point things out and to show things. I'm going to be looking at this area of the button bar in the home menu. So we'll be looking at insert, delete and format. And it's not the formatting. In previous videos I've shown the formatting of cells, where when you press Control 1 for example, you get the formatting dialog box and you can format cells according to number, alignment, font, border and whatever selection you can make from this dialog box. The formatting that we're going to be talking about today is mainly, or it's more about the columns and rows and sheets. So if I, for example, have the setting for a column is 8.11. So the column width, if I go, and I'm going to show you now, I'm going to go to formatting. You press Alt H for the home option, and I go to the O, which is over here for formatting, and if I press D, I can see that the standard column width is 8.11. Now, having this column at 8.11, you see that production is right at the end, so I'd like to have some more space. Purchasing doesn't fit quite nicely, and warehouse doesn't fit at all. So I'd like to, and I'm going to go into this column, and I'm going to select a column is Control and space bar. I've now selected the column. It is unambiguous. I have selected the F column. I could also have just left it on F10, and I could do a similar operation but this is not very clear. Although I am on the F column, it is better to select the F column like this, and then go Alt H, O for formatting, and you see that the W, which is the third option down, is the column width. So I can press the column width, and I can now say, let's make that the width of this column 10, and all the options, so the sales accounts, IT, HR, which were small anyways, but the warehouse, purchasing and production now fit properly into this column. The same I could do with the 7th row, and again, to select a row is Shift spacebar. I've now implicitly selected the 7th row, and I can now go Alt H O and select the row height, which is the first option, and it is set to 20. So I've actually done that in a previous video, but I can make it the normal thing 15. You see that it's very tight, so to open it up and to make it more airy, to a column header should always be different than the rest of the data. So Alt H O, and we select the first one, which is 8. I can now select anything. I can go to 25, and you see that the row height of 7 is now 25. It's a lot higher, and it is much more spacious than the rest of the data. So in previous, because now people say, oh, but it's now hanging at the bottom. In previous videos I showed how to format this, that it is in the middle. So to quickly, I can put it more in the middle. There, now it looks more presentable. So to select a row or to select a range of rows, I can select the cells and then go Shift Spacebar, and now I have selected the whole row. Those 4 rows have now been selected. I can do the same with columns. I can select these 3 columns, and now I can press Control Space, and I have implicitly selected those columns. I could now work with these columns. So if I wanted to add a column here, and instead of having M for male, I wanted to type male and female in that field, I can select this column, which is Control Spacebar. I can go Alt H and insert, which is the I. Now I can insert cells, and I can insert a whole column, which is the C. And here I have added, in between E and G, I've inserted a complete column. And so I can now type male for male and female for the F. Again, I'm just showing you what the possibilities are. It is not necessary to do that, because everybody knows that M stands for male and F for female. So I'm going to delete this. How do I do that? I'm going to press Control Spacebar, Alt H. I've now selected the column, and I'm going to press the D for delete. And I can delete either cells or the whole column. So if I press D, sorry, I did that. I love this. Control Z is the undo. And I can again do what I wanted to do. Alt O. Sorry, Alt H and D, and in this case, sorry, I've selected the whole column, therefore it deleted the whole column. So I'm going to say C and delete it. If I wanted to delete a cell, and so I've selected C10, I'm going to go Alt H and let's insert rather than delete. Insert, and insert a cell. I get an option to say, once I delete this cell, what's going to happen to the rest of the data? Must I shift the cells to the right, because I'm now inserting? That means that from the last name on, everything will be pushed to the right, but only in this row. Must I enter an entire row, so we're inserting, or must I, and Excel asking the question here, must I insert an entire column? And that's so I could select entire column, do that, and now it has, on the spot where I was, which is C10, it has now increased the number of columns, because it inserted a column at the position where I was, and it moved all the columns to the right from where I was. And again, I didn't want to do that, so I'm going to press Control Z to undo that. You must take care that when you do this, and I say Alt H insert and insert cells and shift cells down, for example, the option comes here. Once I've done that, be careful that the James has now moved. Everything from James downward is no longer connected to their surname, because James was supposed to be here, Henk was supposed to be Smith, Sue is supposed to be Mulder, and everything down as well. So if I go all the way down, you see that this is no longer in line. I'm going to delete now. So I'm going to do the same operation the other way around. Alt H and D for delete. I'm going to say delete cells, and now I'm going to shift cells up. So all the ones that are coming from the bottom are now going to be shift up. So that's exactly what I wanted, and James is now next to its surname, and Henk is back to his own surname, and I've fixed the data. So that is the way to insert and delete cells. I could have done the same with my mouse. I'm now using my mouse. I can go insert, and I get the same little insert dialog box, or I can right click and delete, and I get the same dialog box. So there are many ways of doing the same thing in Excel with different tools and in different places. The easiest for me is using the shortcut keys, because you don't have to find positions with your mouse. Right, now let's have a look at rows and columns. So if I'm in this column, I'm in the C column, and I can, sorry, I can see that, for example, Alexander is quite narrow, so I can go Alt H, and I can go to options, and I can set the column width of this column C, and I can increase it a little bit to, let's say, 9. And there you saw that the column width has been increased. We did the same with the row width in this row, and if you say, well, it's a little bit too much, I can go Alt H O for formatting, and I can go row height, and I can make it a little bit less. So let's make this 18 rather than the height of 25. And you can format the looks of your spreadsheet in this manner. The last thing I would like to show you, or should I say the last thing, I've mentioned the shortcut keys for inserting, or not inserting, selecting a whole row and selecting a whole column, which is the shift, the control space. If you wanted to select your whole spreadsheet, I would go shift spacebar. I've now selected all the columns, and the next step, take control spacebar, and now I've selected my entire spreadsheet. Everything has now been selected. The way to do that with the mouse would be to click on this little arrow pointing into the spreadsheet. So you can either with the mouse put your mouse on the B and select the whole column, select a row, or select a range of rows, or select a range of columns. So that's how you would do it with the mouse. You can see that with the keyboard it's actually easier. You don't have to. The problem or the danger with doing it with the mouse is, if you are in this case, you might have this mistake, where you, instead of selecting multiple columns, you take one column and make it much wider. If that happens, I love this key, Control Z, and my mistake is undone. So to do it with the mouse is one way. To do it with the keyboard is actually easier, because also if you wanted the whole database, I can, instead of dragging all the way along, I can go Shift Control and to the right, and now I've selected all the rows, all the columns. I could do the same with the rows. Go to the beginning, Shift Control End, and I've selected all the rows. So working with the keyboard is actually faster. There's no way to explain why, and experience, and the more you do it, you'll see that working with the keyboard is actually a lot faster. So Shift space selects the row, Control space selects the column. If I would like to add a sheet, I would insert, so we'll do the same, Alt H, insert, and at the bottom you see insert a sheet. So I can insert a complete new sheet. The same thing, Alt H and D, and I can delete a complete sheet. And there it is, it's gone. So those are the options that I wanted to show: the insert, the delete, and the formatting. There are other things that we can do with formatting. For example, right at the bottom you see protect sheet and lock cells. We haven't done that yet because we, in the video that I showed you with with Control 1, right at the back here you got protection with locked cells and hidden cells, and later when we start looking at protecting data, we'll have a look at those options. The renaming of sheets, you see that at the bottom, if I select a new, insert, let's insert a new sheet. At the bottom it comes, you see down here, it says it has given a name of sheet 8. It's the 8th sheet that I've opened. I can now go Alt-H, format, and I can, in this section here, I can rename the sheet, I can move it, and I can change the tab color. So if let's say I'd say rename it, and I'm going to rename it test, and now Alt-H-O, and I want to give it a color, so that's T, and let's say I wanted to make it down here. I'm going to use the mouse, which is quicker. I've now named it test, and I've given it a red color. So if I go Control Page up, I'm out of the test. You see that the color changes to red. Control Page down, I'm in it, and it shows me I'm in that sheet. To delete that sheet is Alt-H-D, and I can select the S for delete sheet, and there is the test sheet has now disappeared. This was mainly what I wanted to show you about formatting of cells, columns and rows, and therefore the sheets, because all these cells, columns and rows appear on a sheet, and you can work with those in the home menu options in the cells section. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.